question from Charlie, who is wondering if rolling with only higher belts as a white belt is going to be detrimental to his jiu-jitsu training. So he says that in his gym right now, his coach, because of COVID restrictions, is being forced to sort of lump groups together into smaller groups. And he says that his particular class got lumped into 2 groups of a dozen, and one group is all white belts, the other group is all colored belts, and 1 white belt. And Charlie happens to be that 1 white belt in that group. So the other groups, or the other people in his group, are blue belts, purple belts, brown belts, and so on, and just basically people with a lot more experience than him. Now, he's flattered that his coach, thought that he had enough skill and everything else to be lumped into that group. He does feel flattered by that. But at the same time, when he rolls with everyone, he's getting annihilated, and he's working a lot of defense. And so his question to me is, do you think rolling only with higher belts and getting smashed every day will hinder my progress? The drills with the higher belts are great because they help me, but unsurprisingly, I'm getting annihilated when we roll. And then he goes on to ask if it would be a good idea from time to time to go to the beginner classes and roll with some of the white belts so that he can work a little bit of offense from time to time, because right now it's pretty much all defense. So Charlie, thanks for the question, brother. And man, there's a situation that I've seen happen across sports and even off the mats, right? Whenever you're in a situation where you are surrounded by either smarter people, more skilled people, whatever it might be, it ends up pulling you up because you're forced to. If you stick around long enough, I don't know if it's a situation where it rubs off on you, so to speak, or if it's a situation where you want to be up to that skill level, so you hold yourself to a higher standard. I don't know. But what ends up happening a lot of times is when you put yourself into situations where you're surrounded by better people, you end up rising to the occasion if you stick around long enough. And your situation, getting tongue-tied. If in your situation where you are the white belt, the lone white belt with all the colored belts, it's tough. I was in the situation when I first started where I came in as a white belt. I was wrestling, right? And I got into jiu-jitsu, and me and my 2 buddies started together. Now, I was better than them, but I got killed by everybody else. And I remember being on the mats, and for the most part, I was always working defense. I was always getting smashed. I was getting submitted by everyone except for my 2 buddies. But what was interesting is that I remember competing in jiu-jitsu in 2 weeks after I first started, and I remember going to the competition, and it was almost like having lifting weights. It's almost like putting 300 pounds on the bar and doing some squats, and it's pretty heavy, and then all of a sudden dropping that weight in half, and now we put 150 pounds on, and now it's half the weight, and it feels so much lighter because of the contrast. Similarly, it was like that where I had to be way more alert, way more on my game with my training partners, because these blue belts, and we had some guys that were green belts, which back then was kind of an intermediary belt between the white belt and the blue belt. They smoked me, they caught me. Even the good white belts were crushing me. But then when I went to the competition against the white belts that I was competing against, they weren't at that same skill level. And so a lot of times I got away with more things. They didn't have the same kind of pressure. They weren't as skilled. And so I was used to rolling with that. And then when I went over to roll these guys, it almost felt like I was rolling in slow motion, or that it was just a better situation for me overall. Now, I ended up taking second in the competition, losing in the finals to a really tough guy, and did pretty well for 2 weeks into it, right? And I was even thinking about progress-wise, about some of my students who have come into the gym. So in the evening classes, we have enough white belts and newcomers where we have beginner classes where it's really small, or it's much smaller classes that are focused on just the basics and stuff like that, and we put them into groups. Now in the morning classes, I don't have enough new people to do that. We have new people coming in, but not enough where with the evening classes, they would be huge if I lumped them together. But for the morning classes, a lot of times I can just divide people up into groups, and then we can give the advanced people something and the beginners something. And then when they roll, it's no big deal. The big white belts roll with the advanced people, and they help them out. And what I've noticed is that the advanced guys a lot of times help the white belts out a bunch. And I have not seen any discernible difference in progress as a group from my white belts that start in the morning classes versus my white belts that start in the beginning classes in the evenings. So I haven't really seen a big difference between the 2. And so to kind of get to your question, will it hinder your progress? I don't think so. In fact, I think long term it's going to make you better, but it's going to be a tougher road in the beginning because, like you said, you don't have a chance to play around with all the fun stuff, because the offense is the fun stuff: sweeping, submitting, being in the offensive position. It's fun. You won't be in that situation as much. And so you're going to be doing a lot of defense, and you're going to be rolling with these guys that are tough, and they're going to smash you a lot. Now, the benefit is that, like you said, with the drilling, your techniques are probably going to be drilled better because of the fact that you're drilling with guys who will be able to give you some experiential advice, right? Because they've been there and done that. And they'll be able to kind of say, hey, don't do this instead. And then when you roll with them, they'll probably be able to do the same thing where they can help you out a little bit. And I think that long term, that's going to be a better thing. And I think that being surrounded by that group of people in a room is going to pull you up a little bit, because if you stick around, like I said, it's just going to rub off on you. You're going to have to raise your game up a bit and a bit faster. But in the short term, it's going to be tougher. Going to your second question you asked about going to beginner classes, I think it's a good idea if you can do it. For me, I didn't have a beginner class, but I had my white belt buddies that I could do a little bit of offense on. And eventually some new people came in, but back then, 2003, people didn't come in as much as they do now. With the people that come in now, a lot of times my white belts, once they've been in for about a month or so, there's usually a new crop of people coming in, so they get a chance to try their stuff out on them. And so I think if you could go to a beginner class from time to time, it would be a good idea so that you could work some of the offense and some of the things that you've been working on in your classes. And so, yeah, I think that's the gist of it, brother. So hopefully that's useful to you, Charlie. Good luck with your training. And again, stick it out, and I think that long term it's going to make you better. And I'll talk to you guys next time.